Sometimes, in a moment of blind rage, a man loses all sense of reason. And that's exactly what happened to me. For the past 2 years, I've been locked away in prison waiting for my death. Every single day, I've thrown myself to the ground in prayer, weeping, not from fear of punishment, but from the unbearable weight of guilt. I've been serving my sentence long before any judge gave the verdict. My own conscience became my jailer. If only, if only those events hadn't unfolded the way they did. If only I had walked away. If only I had taken a breath before acting. Maybe today I would still be a free man. But I knew better now. I knew that my fate was sealed. That the death penalty was the only future left for me. I had given up all hope of life. Until one day, news came to me that shook my soul. It brought with it a new light, but when I learned the truth behind it, my skin crawled. I couldn't believe what I heard. 2 years ago, it all happened in a flash. That one moment, that one scene still burns behind my eyes like it happened yesterday. I was walking home, happier than I had ever been. I had just bought flower garlands for my wife, Razia. I was excited, overjoyed, because I had received a promotion at work. I worked in a textile factory, and after months of hard work, I had finally been made a supervisor. My efforts had paid off. Every drop of sweat, every overtime shift, I had done it all for her, for Razia, because I loved her deeply. And she had always dreamed of a life of comfort, a life of luxury. I didn't want to give her that through shortcuts or sin. I wanted to earn it through honest, halal work. Razia deserved that. She deserved more than I had ever been able to give, and so I worked like a man possessed, more than my body could handle sometimes. But I did it for her. When I heard the news of my promotion, I felt like I was flying. My salary had increased by 5,000 rupees a month, and I had already decided I would give that amount to Razia every month as her personal allowance, no questions asked. I wanted to surprise her, make her smile, make her proud. But the moment I opened the door of our home, everything changed. I had made her happiness the single purpose of my life. From the very first day of our marriage, Razia used to tell me that she wanted her own spending allowance, something she could use freely. But back then, I was barely surviving. I could only give her 1,000 rupees a month, and even that was a stretch. Still, I promised myself things would get better. And now, with my promotion and the salary increase, I was confident that Razia would finally be happy. I had no idea, though, that Razia had already prepared to fly far higher than I could ever reach, that even 5,000 rupees a month would soon mean nothing to her. After leaving the factory, I bought flower garlands for her. She looked so beautiful when she wore them in her long dark hair. My wife was stunning, truly, the kind of beauty that left people speechless when she got dressed up. And today I imagined her smiling as I draped those flowers around her, the way her eyes would light up, the way she'd hug me with joy. I was so sure that I was finally enough, but I had no idea what reality was waiting to show me. As always, I used my key to unlock the front door. I had come home early that day, not something I usually did. Normally, I worked late, even put in overtime shifts to earn more. But today, I was so eager to share my good news with Razia that I left work early. I wanted to surprise her. I wanted to see the look on her face. But the moment I reached the door of our bedroom, my world collapsed. I can still see it, and clear as day. That scene, that betrayal. My eyes darkened, my knees almost gave out, and for a moment, I doubted my own vision. But it was real. My wife, my Razia, in my bedroom, with my cousin. I stood there, frozen, my hands still holding the flowers I bought for her, now trembling. And as the truth tore through me, something darker began to boil inside. Rage, heartbreak, humiliation, all at once. Razia and I had grown up in the same neighborhood. She was the most beautiful girl on our street, the kind men used to steal glances at, the kind whose name lingered in whispered praise. I had loved her silently for so long, and when I told my mother about my feelings, she had been thrilled. She went immediately to ask for Razia's hand in marriage. Our fathers had been close friends, and her father knew me well. He saw me as hardworking, respectable, and sincere. That's why he accepted my proposal without hesitation. At the time, Razia was just 16. She had seen me before, tall, strong, decent-looking, and had no objections. Our marriage had seemed like a dream, but it didn't take long after the wedding to learn the truth. That beauty alone doesn't make a woman worthy. There are other qualities that make a life beautiful, and Razia lacked all of them. She was ungrateful, always unhappy, always wanting more, and in that hunger for perfection, she trampled over my emotions again and again. I should have known on our first night. I had gifted her a delicate gold chain, something far beyond my means, hoping to see joy in her eyes, but she didn't even look at it properly. Instead, she frowned and asked coldly, "Why is it so thin?" I had sacrificed so much just to buy that gift. I had given up basic needs to save for that one moment. I thought she would be touched. I thought she would understand, because she too came from poverty. But I was wrong, and that was only the beginning. But there wasn't even a hint of a smile on her face. Maybe she had been expecting something far more expensive. I stood there, disappointed and deflated, but I still made her a promise that one day I would buy her a much better gold chain. Something grander, heavier, something she would actually like. But that moment wasn't an isolated one. It was only the beginning. From that day on, everything became a reason for her dissatisfaction. If it wasn't the size of our house, it was the condition of my old motorcycle. She spoke as if I had dragged her from a palace and thrown her into misery. Every time I took her out, she found something wrong. The restaurant wasn't good enough, the food was tasteless, the atmosphere too cheap. And when I bought her clothes, she always wanted the most expensive ones, far beyond what I could afford. If I couldn't get them, she'd insult me. "You're not even worthy of me," she'd say. Razia measured my love against material things, while I tried to endure her bitter words with a smile. Because I loved her. Every time she belittled me, I would promise her more. I told her I would work harder, push further, fulfill every desire she had. But Razia never looked at me with appreciation. Only with those piercing, cold eyes that made me feel like less of a man. I genuinely wanted to give her everything, but doing so with honest halal earnings was difficult. I thought about shortcuts, about doing something illegal just to earn more, but my conscience would never allow it. I couldn't take that path. My mother couldn't tolerate Razia's temperament either. There were constant arguments between the two. Razia wouldn't lift a finger around the house, claiming it would dull her beauty. My mother, old and tired, did all the chores herself. When I came home from work, I would be caught in their daily conflicts. Razia would tell me to hire a maid, and I would just stare at her, speechless. She had no understanding of what it meant to live within your means. Eventually, I rented a separate apartment just for her, though even paying rent each month was a burden. I scraped and saved for everything. I even managed to buy a small secondhand car, hoping it would finally make her happy. But once again, Razia wasn't pleased. "This isn't the kind of car I wanted," she said bluntly. I meant a big one. No matter what I did, it was never enough. I began to ask myself what else I could possibly do to make her happy. But maybe some people are never truly satisfied. Maybe they don't even want to be. Razia was one of those people, always looking higher, never pausing to appreciate what she had. She couldn't see the small joys of our home, the peace we had despite limited means. We weren't living a luxurious life, but we weren't starving either. God had blessed us with enough, but she never saw it. Sometimes I feared that her ingratitude would bring down God's wrath, that he might take back the blessings he had given us. And recently, I had started to feel something strange, something different in her. Razia had grown distant, cold, detached. She barely spoke to me anymore, and when she did, it was only to argue. It felt as if she was only staying in the marriage out of some heavy obligation, not love, not loyalty. Razia often complained about me to her father as well, but her father was a wise man. He always tried to explain to her that one must live within their means. "Stretch your legs only as far as your blanket allows," he'd say. But Razia never understood this wisdom. She never missed an opportunity to taunt me. She'd constantly tell me that I had never fulfilled a single one of her desires, that marrying me had ruined her life. And those words, they stung deeper than she could imagine. because I had given her everything I could. Everything. There wasn't a corner of my life I hadn't dedicated to her happiness. Razia was proud, not just of her appearance, but of what she believed she deserved. She would say it outright. I could have married someone rich and handsome. There was no shortage of proposals. But my father ruined my life by choosing you. Sometimes she'd even curse her father in anger, blaming him for her unhappiness. One day, my cousin Ikhlaq came to visit. He had never met Razia before, and when he finally saw her, he was visibly stunned. She had just come out of the shower, wrapped in a bright red dress. Her fair skin glowed, her damp hair flowed past her waist, and her gray eyes sparkled with a strange allure. Ikhlaq was captivated. He lived in another city and was visiting ours for a few days on a business trip. He didn't have any other relatives here, so I offered him to stay at our place. As he looked at Razia, he nudged me playfully and whispered, "Where did you find such a beautiful Bobby? I've been searching for a girl like this for years, but haven't come across anyone even close." Before I could respond, Razia chimed in cheerfully. "If you'd like, I can help you find someone just like me." They both laughed, and the conversation began to flow easily between them. I actually felt a bit relieved that Razia didn't seem bothered by Ikhlaq's presence. Usually her temper flared over the smallest things, but this time she was smiling, joking. I thought maybe, just maybe with Tiamai we'd finally have some peace in the house. Ikhlaq had come in his own expensive car. He was wealthy, ran his own business, and was planning to expand it to our city. He and I had always been close, almost like brothers. That's why he chose to stay at my house instead of with my mother. Razia didn't object to his staying with us either. We had a small guest room near the front of the house with its own entrance, so I offered him that. But despite the separate space, he was almost always found inside the main living area. And more often than not, when I returned home from work, I would find him there, sitting with Razia in the lounge, both of them deep in conversation, laughing, chatting as if nothing else existed. And at the time, I thought nothing of it. How wrong I was. It didn't sit right with me. Ikhlaq spending such long hours with Razia, especially late into the night. But I remained silent, telling myself he was only here for a few days. More than that, I had noticed a strange change in Razia's behavior since his arrival. She was smiling more, arguing less. For a man like me who had grown used to bitterness, this little piece felt like relief. But in truth, it was my greatest mistake. Allowing a non-mahram man to stay under the same roof as my wife. Razia became increasingly impressed with Ikhlaq. He would casually mention his wealth, his property, his cars. It was as if he'd already figured out what moved her, and he used it well. One day, he brought expensive outfits for Razia, not just for her, but for both of us, and invited us to dine at one of the city's most elite restaurants. That evening, for the first time, I heard Razia compliment the food at a restaurant. Even after we returned home, all she talked about was Ikhlaq, his car, his style, his generosity. She admired everything about him. The clothes he bought her had left her enchanted. I tried to convince myself that this was just temporary, that she was simply flattered, but I had no idea things were already going too far. The truth was far more devastating. Ikhlaq had become obsessed with Razia's beauty. And Razia? She had fallen for the comfort and glamour his money promised. Day by day, their interactions became more casual, more intimate, more dangerous. And I was too blind to see it. I told myself she was laughing again, dressing up again. Wasn't that a good thing? But I didn't realize she wasn't doing it for me. She had begun dressing up for someone else. Ikhlaq soon set up his business in our city and announced that he would now be visiting frequently. The glow on Razia's face when she heard this, it shook me. There was a joy there I hadn't seen in a long time. A joy that had nothing to do with me. Still, I tried to be a good husband. That day, I bought fresh flower garlands, the kind she loved, and rushed home early to surprise her with my promotion news. But what I saw when I reached the bedroom door, it burned my soul. There she was, my wife, entangled with Ikhlaq on our bed. So deeply involved in each other that they didn't even notice me standing there frozen. Time stopped. My hand still clutched the garlands meant for her. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I had worked day and night for this woman, gone beyond my means to provide her comfort. And now here she was, with my own cousin, betraying me in the most painful way. God knows what dreams Iklok had filled in her eyes that made her cross every limit, every boundary of decency and loyalty. She had destroyed our marriage, our bond, as if it meant nothing. Something inside me snapped. Blinded by rage, I rushed to the kitchen. I didn't think. I just acted. I grabbed the biggest knife I could find and stormed back into the room. Before they could even process my presence, before a single word could escape their lips, I struck. Once, twice, they screamed, but it was too late. I stabbed them both again and again, in a frenzy of betrayal, rage, heartbreak. When I finally stopped, they were lifeless, and blood was everywhere. I had killed my wife. I had killed my cousin. And then, the fog lifted. I stared at their bodies, at my blood-stained hands, and a deep, suffocating silence took over. What had I done? I didn't have time to think. I heard a knock at the front door. Panic surged through me. I had no idea who it was. I didn't wait to find out. I ran. I climbed the back wall and disappeared into the night. I didn't look back. For days I stayed hidden. I wandered aimlessly, surviving off scraps. I had no money, no shelter, nowhere to go. Hunger gnawed at me until I could no longer bear it, and that's when I was forced to come out of hiding. Within a few days, I was caught by the police. It was Razia's father who had filed the case against me. The day someone knocked at our door, it had been him. After knocking for a long time without any response, he finally broke the door down with the help of neighbors. What he found inside left him horrified, his daughter and my cousin Iklok lying in pools of blood. He immediately pressed charges against me for the murder of his daughter. I was officially charged with Razia's murder. And soon I learned that Iklok had survived, but he too had been taken into custody for entirely different reasons. It turned out that Iklok was a wanted man in another city. He had been running from the police. His crimes were vile. He would befriend young women, lure them into physical relationships, secretly take explicit photos, and then blackmail them for money. That's why he had left his city and come to us to hide. But none of that mattered in my case. The law began its course of action. My mother, heartbroken but determined, hired a lawyer to defend me. And my lawyer tried everything he could. But I told him from the very beginning, I would not shame my wife's character in open court. I had seen what I saw in that bedroom. But I couldn't bring myself to speak of it publicly. I didn't want to drag Razia's name through the mud, even after all she had done. My lawyer pleaded with me, said the only way to reduce my sentence was to prove that Razia had betrayed me. But I refused. I kept silent. And the court sentenced me to death. Even after the betrayal. Even after losing everything. I still loved Razia. I regretted what I had done. Deeply. I should not have taken her life. No matter the pain, no matter the betrayal, murder was not the answer. Somewhere in all of this, I was guilty too. I had made the mistake of letting a non-mahram man live in my house next to my wife. I spent my days in prison, crying on the prayer mat, begging Allah for forgiveness. I prayed for freedom. I didn't want to die. I confessed my sins again and again with tears streaming down my face. And then, something happened that I could never have imagined. A day before my scheduled execution, I was told I was being released. I couldn't believe it. But when I found out the reason, my skin broke into goosebumps. Razia had appeared in her father's dreams and every night for 10 nights straight, and asking him to forgive me and to save me from the punishment. He told me himself after my release that she kept coming to him in the same dream saying, I have forgiven him. Set him free. At first, he dismissed it as just a dream. But the repetition, the clarity, it began to feel like a message from beyond. That maybe Razia, wherever she was, truly wanted me to be forgiven. Her father still grieved her loss. She was his young daughter after all, but deep down he knew. He had seen them together with his own eyes. He knew Razia had made a grave mistake. And even in his sorrow, he didn't want my mother to go through the pain of losing her only son. And Razia had never truly lived happily with me while she was alive. But in death, she brought me peace. She gave me back my life. I still mourn her. I still love her as deeply as I did on the first day. She spent her life chasing luxuries I couldn't give. And that's why she accepted Ikhlaq. She thought he could give her what I couldn't. But sometimes, in chasing the glitter of the world, we lose the very essence of life. Ikhlaq now sits behind bars, paying for his crimes, and I, by the grace of Allah, am a free man once more. My love for Razia hasn't faded. Some loves never die, and mine for her is one of them.